Our first speaker is Ray Anderson, CEO of Bango. Bango has a market cap of around £80 million. They're a provider of an innovative and I would say leading platform which allows consumers to pay for content and now to pay also for physical goods via their mobile phone bills. They've also made a major push into the market for data analytics and advertising around that, and they acquired a business called Audience almost exactly 2 years ago today. So it's a huge market and a big opportunity coupled with, I think, a highly scalable business model. So lots to think about and lots to understand, and I'll hand you over to the CEO, Ray Anderson. Ray.
Thanks very much. So what I'm going to take you through in the next 25 minutes is what Bango does and our strategy for doing it. Quick update on the financial highlights from the first half of 2019, which is the published results. 17th of March, we're publishing our full year results, and there's a nice handout produced by Progressive, which gives you some information, a bit more colour, which also includes some information for the trading update we did at the end of last year. And I'll then talk about some business developments over the last year and a bit about the outlook. So a lot to squeeze into 25 minutes, but I hope I can communicate with you through that. The market Bango operates in is what we call mobile commerce or mobile app commerce. The idea being that an awful lot of commerce is done these days through having an app on your phone. And the nicest space where we're very focused is where the app on the phone and the payment are all linked together. So it's the same device with the same payment method. So traditionally for us, and vast bulk of our business is where you're in an app, you press a button to buy, and you pay for something on your mobile phone bill. But increasingly, we're also broadening out into other payment methods like digital wallets and credit cards stored on phones and so on. So the sweet spot is things bought on mobile phones and paid for on the mobile phone through a payment method linked to the mobile phone. And the reason that's important is if the device paying and the device promoting is the same as the device you pay on, there's lots of clever things you can do with that because you can gain a lot of knowledge from that rather than the old world of a credit card and a PC, which are completely disjoint and you've got no easy way of linking the two. The way we look at the market in our sort of focus is at the moment, there's about $120 billion a year spent through the app stores. And we get a little piece of that. I'll talk about the business model. And those app developers spend about half the revenue they generate back onto marketing to get you to buy more apps. So both sides of that market are growing very, very fast. And we play a little bit on both sides of that market. So a big market opportunity. Just a quick example of what I'm talking about. If you go to Google Play, which is by far the most popular app store, it's on about 83% of smartphones. You can play in a game. So this is Pokemon Go. You can buy some coins, so you can do some extra things in Pokemon Go. You press the button to buy the coins for 99 cents. Behind the scenes, Bango takes that 99 cents from your phone bill, makes sure it gets channeled over to Google, who pass it on to Niantic, who wrote the game. And we check that the payment worked. And then the customer can get the content because they've paid for it. So that's the classic in-app payment. Single click, you pay for something in your app. More recently, just about a couple of years ago, we also started powering Amazon in Japan for physical goods. So what Amazon has done is they've arranged with 2 out of 3 of the Japanese operators to put charges on the phone bill for physical goods, which isn't particularly popular outside Japan at the moment. So person is on amazon.co.jp. They come across a bottle of Chanel Allure perfume. If they don't have one-click buying, which they've already chosen a payment method, it'll say, would you like to pay on your mobile phone bill? They click yes. It says, where do you want it sent? And if the phone bill already has the person's street address, it'll be pre-populated. If not, they can give it. And then they get the bottle of perfume shipped to their house. So there's obviously a big difference between paying for 99-cent virtual coins in a game, and there is buying I can't see the price on this. It was about, I think last time I looked, it was about 14,300 yen, which is about £100. So that's a £100 bottle of perfume, click, bought, put on your phone bill. And in Japan, people are buying television sets for $1,000 on their phone bill. So it's payment could be an app for selling physical goods or an app for selling digital goods. So how do we work? Our focus really is on partnering with the industry leaders. So we think the people who are in mobile commerce and are driving this forward, we want to provide our technology to make this easy to use. That turns out to be Amazon, turns out to be Google, Microsoft, people who do games consoles. We've recently announced deals with Spotify, with YouTube TV. So we've got a good degree of traction building there. And so we want to help those partners plug into the payment methods that work well on mobile phones, so mobile operator billing being the main one, and help them expand and grow. We operate globally. We go where they go. So we're in every country that Amazon, Google, Microsoft we'll go to. And interestingly, the only place where they're not is China, because China doesn't let them in. So we haven't done much business in China, helping them go into China because they're not in China yet. But obviously, if they wanted to go into China, we'd be there to help them. The strategy we have is pretty unique, actually, and it hinges on that point that if the payment method and the way you promote the content are on the same device, you can do an awful lot more than you can in any other environment. And it's basically, we help the merchants process payments. So we reach customers, help them get money from the customers. But what we also do is, as all the payments are transacted and we see what's going on, we analyze that data so we can see in an audience, like you guys, if you were all transacting mobile payments, we could see what different ones of you were buying. We could see which of you were spending lots of money, which of you were never spending any money, which of you couldn't spend any money because you'd run out of money that month. And from that information, we can help the merchants. We've created these things called audiences and data, which we can help the marketers, the developers, focus on different parts of the audience to put their marketing. So if you're selling high-value strategy games on a mobile phone, you're probably better off marketing them to high-value strategy game buyers. And if there are people who never spend any money, you don't want to waste your money marketing to those people. So this virtuous circle, as we call it, if we can get more users paying, we collect more data, we can give more insights back to the marketers and developers, they can go around the circle, their marketing gets more efficient, so they can get more payments, which generates more data, and this circle builds. And the measure of success of that circle is what we call end user spend, the amount of volume going through the platform. And I'll just come on to that in a moment. So we published our half-year results in September for the first half of 2019. And before I go into that in too much depth, just to summarize, the business model is how we get money out of our strategy is when we process payments on this side of the strategy, we take a small share of the revenue. So if someone's processing $1, we might take a cent, for example, for doing the processing. And the beauty of that business, it's 100% margin because we charge a fee for processing the transaction. The cost of processing the transaction is effectively zero because we built a platform that can scale to very, very large numbers of dollars at a fixed cost. And there's no incremental cost when we do a $1 transaction or a $1,000 transaction. It's the same transaction with different bits set in the bytes in the packets effectively. So we can scale that business up very, very quickly with no extra cost. And so that side of the platform is 100% margin. And the great thing about it is with the stable OpEx, that's what's driving our profit growth. So you'll see on our first half results and on our trading update, we're EBITDA positive, and that's because we've driven that business forward. I'll talk about that in a moment. On this side of the circle, this is the newer part, is where, as well as making the payments happen and giving some data to make the payments happen better, we're also starting to extract insights from the data and feed it back to the merchants. And this business is one where we rent the use of the data. The data never leaves Bango. We rent the use of the data to the merchants, and we pay some of that fee we collect back to the payment provider who provided us with the data in the first place. So there's an incentive to come into the Bango circle, we call it, into the Bango platform, to the payment providers, because if they can give us some data, they can not only get money from their processing of payments, they can also get extra money from the data that they can generate being used to make them more money. So it's an interesting two-sided strategy. So I mentioned that end user spend is our number one KPI. The great news is that we've managed to grow that very quickly and very smoothly over the last few years. I think back in these days, sort of 4 or 5 years ago, I remember we were doing about £25 million worth of end user spend. Last year, we did £1.1 billion worth of end user spend, and the analyst expectations is to be over 2 billion next year. So what we've done is for the last 5 years, we've doubled every year as we've gone forward, or more than doubled in some cases. So that not only means we're processing payments and we're getting a share of those payments, that's what we charge our customers for processing the payments, we're also gathering enormous amounts of data. And having data on $1 billion of transactions out of that 120 million of total spend is quite exciting. It's 1% of the consumer spend, gives us nice sample audiences. And the more data we get, the more value we can extract out of it, and the more important it becomes. Clearly, if I'm selling things to you guys and I only have data on 2 of you, it's not as useful as having data on 10 of you. And I can obviously, there's various techniques to AI and so on to ripple that data across all of you, even though we haven't yet transacted with you. As I mentioned, the nice thing about this is that we charge a fee for each of those transactions, and those transactions drop through to the bottom line. So as the end user spend climbs, our sales revenue increases, and the revenue trend is continuing to go upwards. Someone earlier mentioned the point that does the revenue go up at the same rate as the end user spend? No, because as we bring on very, very large customers like Amazon, for example, the amount they'll pay per transaction, especially on the bigger transactions, will be a lower percentage share than we'll get on a smaller customer doing a small value item. So what will happen is, as we get more and more and more bigger customers, the average price will reduce. But that's the nature of when you go into larger and larger and bigger markets. So nice business, high margin business, and we're building out very nicely. And that's really the driver of what's driven us to EBITDA positive and profitability in the short term. So here you can see, as the gross margin's gone up, gross profit's gone up, the cost of the business has gone up relatively slowly. And the arrow indicates there was a bit of a step as we acquired this other business that had a data business, and that bumped our OPEX up a little bit. But the crossover point now has been met. So we're now off into the future where we can generate our own cash to invest in our own activities. So quick update on the business. A lot of things happened last year. We had a lot more uptake of subscriptions with people like Spotify, Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, Amazon Music, all coming onto the platform. We had Pandora joined us in the USA in last year. So a lot more subscription businesses, which actually give us a bit of stability on the outlook. We had a lot more connection to prepaid customers, prepaid operators, where prepaid accounts are in place, and we can now do subscriptions with prepaid users using some interesting technology. We got an awful lot more users connected to the Bango platform. We've plugged in, for example, operators in India, recently in Myanmar, which is a very large population, although not a very high GDP. So we're expanding our reach so we can help people like Amazon and Google get into those markets. The peaks of end user spend we're processing are very high now. We can process very significant peaks. And on the data side, we've started to prove that we can get people by using the Bango data can get a 9 times return on their marketing compared without using the Bango audiences. We've seen a 9-fold increase in marketplace registrations. That's people going to the Bango marketplace to buy data. We've seen a very large surge since its early days. We've now got more than 60 different audiences available for sale in the Bango marketplace where people can buy data to go and target users. And the technology we use to help increase spend, even without people using our marketing data, has yielded an extra £80 million last year in revenue. So part of that 1.1 billion, £80 million of that was driven by the use of data by Bango to make those payments more efficient and more effective. So the virtuous circle is speeding up. This is just an idea of, we obviously want to keep the platform cost stable. So as the platform growth, the transactions going through the platform have grown over the last 5 years, obviously our software developers and engineers are working to make sure that we can handle not only the average spend going up, doubling every year, but what we also see is that some days there are very, very big spikes. Amazon Prime Day, New Year's Day is an interesting big spike in Japan. And the first day of a month is normally a big spender because a lot of people's mobile phone bills reset for the first day of the month, so they can spend more in the beginning of the month than they can at the end of the month because they've got more buying power at the beginning of the month. So platform is stable, cost is stable, but its capacity is going up. And obviously ingenious our software architecture, Moore's law, cloud services all allow us to keep the cost stable while the volume going through the platform continues to rise. So first half, more payments processed, more merchants added, more new services launched, and the more effective marketing is starting to kick in. We're providing more insights, we're making more audiences available, and we're getting more registrations in the Bango marketplace where people go to get data. So what will drive our outlook? A couple more slides here. Why do we think the end user spend can continue to approximately double? The wise among you, probably 90% of you, will realize we can't double forever. Someone said, do you think you'll keep doubling for the next 10 years? And the answer is, because you'll be doing quite a lot, you'll be doing like tens of billions. And the answer is, well, if we double for the next 10 years, in year 10, we'll be doing $1 trillion, because it'll be 1,024 billion or something like that. So I think the doubling at some stage will have to fade off. Otherwise, I think 14 years out with a GDP of planet Earth. So it's not going to get quite that far, but we're confident we can keep, the doubling trend can keep going for a while longer, because our biggest customers drive a significant growth. Each of these people is growing at 30 or 40% per year. And we're often in the sweet spot of their business, which is growing faster. So Amazon Prime, Amazon Music, Microsoft Xbox are the frontiers of their business. We're adding more countries. So I mentioned Myanmar's added. That's it'll grow faster as a rate than established companies like, say, Australia. We're getting more merchants. So Spotify, this new is actually YouTube TV. We announced that right at the end of the year. And AE Tolls is where we're actually doing road tolling in America, where people are charging on their mobile phone when they drive through the turnstiles on an expressway. And then finally, the fact we can give more data to our customers so they can drive their revenue faster, and we can do more payment processing, more insights. So each of those things multiplied together drives our growth, which is really why over the last 5 years we've had doubling every year. And we see that sort of pattern can continue off into the future. Just a couple of slides on the data. This is a sort of formative year. 2 years ago, we bought Audience. That gave us some really cool technology to move over to the Bango platform and use. It means we can dice and slice the data, create valuable audiences, hence the company being called Audience in its name. While that continues to operate as a separate business, primarily in Italy, we've taken the technology into the Bango platform. We've created the audiences. And if you go to bango.com, you can have a look at what's available for use. We rent access is to use the audiences. We never sell data. I won't go into this slide too much, but effectively this is why people like Bango. It's because normally, if they use the conventional route on the top path of targeting and marketing and using Facebook demographics and so on, it'll normally cost $35 to acquire a paying user. And with Bango, you go through the Bango path where you use Bango to restrict your marketing to users that pay. The cost of acquiring a paying user is typically a ninth of that, so around about $4 a user. So if you're trying to acquire users that will pay and you can do it for less money, it's a really good thing. So use a Bango audience, focus your marketing money on people who pay, and don't waste your marketing money on people who don't pay. We know who pays, or we know many of the people who pay. So this is the sort of the maths and the dynamics that a lot of our customers go through. And it's quite revolutionary because most people don't think they can target the paying users because they think they have to target users based on what they search for, what they like, and so on. So that's the big picture of Bango. 20 years ago, Google started off. Their idea was that they'd provide a fantastic search engine. They monetized the search engine because they were able to sell advertising based on what people searched for. Hotel in Cambridge, and loads of hotel in Cambridge adverts come up, and people pay for those. And then Facebook started up 10 years later, and they said, like this, like that person, like this thing. And so if someone's liking, in this case, liking a particular game, well, why not offer them the game? Or if they like a hotel in Cambridge, why don't other hotels in Cambridge cluster around that page and offer them advertising? And what we're trying to do is something a bit different. It's to say, hold on a minute, we know what people are paying for. We see all the payment, or we see many payment transactions. So if you want to sell something, why don't you target your marketing based on if people are buying a very similar thing or an adjacent thing? So if you're selling headphones, why not target the people who are buying streaming music? So there's some interesting models there that can play out. And we think this is very important. And really the focus of Bango is revolutionizing mobile commerce by using payment data in a way that nobody's ever used it before. I say nobody's ever used it before. You may be familiar with a company that does use it within its own world, which is Amazon. When you buy things on Amazon, they record what you buy, and then they target you based on what you buy. So what we're doing is we're effectively expanding the Amazon model to a broader range of, across many small merchants, app developers and so on, and also across the big merchants. So it's a different way of looking at things than Amazon does within its own world. It's allowing that model to apply across multiple destinations. And of course, Amazon's part of it. They're using Bango to collect money from users. Okay, so just summing up, the whole idea of Bango is Bango's created this circle, this virtuous circle, which is good for everybody. People join the circle. By joining Bango, you come in, you can do things that weren't possible before because of the data we have. And we're just encouraging as many people, as many merchants and payment providers to come into the Bango circle, where together we can do more and people can thrive.
Spot on timing. Thank you very much.
Good timing.
Right, absolutely to the minute. So fantastic. We've got 15 minutes or so for any Q&A.
Thanks for the presentation. Who are we other than you?
The Bango team is me, CEO, Chief Marketing Officer Anil Malhotra, who's a co-founder of the business with me 20 years ago. It's our 20th birthday this Friday. We have Paul Larby, who's our Chief Operating Officer. He came on board about a year ago. He's came from Nokia, where he built a big video division of Nokia up out of a startup in coincidentally Cambridge. Carolyn Rand, who's our CFO, who she's got to look her up on the web. And then we've got a very good leadership team with a lot of experience, some of which have been at Bango for 5-6 years, very solid mobile and technical people. And then we also have some pretty good people out in the field. We've got a very strong guy in Japan, in Korea, to sort of touch the most important people who matter out in the regions, in the other countries. Is that the you were looking for the broader team? Yeah.
Can you say something about your competitors, people who do this or something similar, or who you may take business from, or they may take business from you?
So the biggest competitor we have is the operators plugging directly into the stores. So if you look at the where most of our business is, which is this thing called carrier billing, it's about the amount of carrier billing that goes on is probably around about $25 billion a year, maybe a bit more than that. And most of that is the biggest mobile operators plugging directly into Google, and also into other merchants. And so we want to get those people to sort of move to Bango. So the biggest challenge we have is how do we persuade them? So there's in our pipeline we have about $10 billion of end user spend going through. So Docomo, SoftBank, KDDI, KT, SKT, LGU Plus, China Mobile, the big people in Taiwan. So it's Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and then you could go to Germany, UK. And most people do direct. And so we're trying to get that off. The next, then you have other carrier billing specialists like Boku is a good example, where they've got Apple as a sort of they connect Apple as the sort of the main core of their business. They've got a few Google deals, but hardly any that matter. So there's about a handful of those. And then there's a couple of other companies. There's Docomo itself has a division. They're probably the number 2 in the market, where friends of Docomo put their direct business through this division of Docomo. And then there's a small company in Estonia called Fortumo, which is about $100 million of end user spend, something like that. So it's much smaller. But they're quite interesting because they've got lots of small countries that they're doing a little bit of work for, like Estonia, for example, or they're quite big in Vietnam. So we want their business to move over onto Bango. So this data story is something they don't offer. So the fact the payment processors, by coming to Bango, can open up a new revenue stream is the main reason they'll come across. And obviously we're working hard on making that happen. And we've had some migrations so far, but we really want the really big ones to come across, bringing billions of dollars across into the end user spend.
So am I getting it right? The reason they will come over to you or may come over to you is because you also you also give them access to data.
We give them an additional revenue stream out of their data. Which, if you think about it, a mobile operator, no app developer is interested in a mobile operator, because who are they? If I'm Supercell, who's Vodafone? Never heard of them, because we don't even touch them. Well, you do actually, because you've got 120 million of their customers buying your stuff. Have we? Well, how do we reach them? And since there are 530 mobile operators around the world, they don't want to care about that. If we can help those operators monetize their data towards a Supercell or any of the big app developers, any of the small app developers, that's our special, unique capability. So the Bango marketplace is very special. And obviously, as it builds up and as the amount of money flows to operators, they'll all start to think, hold on, this is real. We can get more money. And maybe they can get more money out of data monetization than they can actually make from processing the payments, which would be we think that might even be possible. So we've got to get them moving in that direction. And the nice thing now is because we have a business that's EBITDA positive, cash neutral, we can put a lot of energy into that as we roll out this technology, and we can prove it. So we're going to get case studies that will prove that.
Hello, hi there, Ray.
Hi.
Just you've got a lot of sort of big gorillas as your client base. I was wondering what sort of pricing power you actually have with them.
Yeah, I think that's right. So interestingly enough, with the biggest gorilla we have is Amazon. So that's our customer, and they're very demanding and very price sensitive, as you can imagine. So clearly they're familiar with paying for good value, and we have to give them a lot of value. So the value we give people like Amazon is clearly that we not only get the payments working, but also we can improve the chance of those payments working using data sort of behind the scenes. But the reason the marketplace is a little bit more interesting, if you go to bango.com, look at the marketplace, is that we're not really talking to Google as our customer. We're talking to the people behind Google. So there are 1.8 million app developers behind Google. About 1 million of those sell things. They sell things in their apps, and those are the people who become our customers. And if you think about it, if as our technology is proven to work and makes people more successful in marketing, the pricing power is on us, because if people start using our technology, everyone has to buy it to keep. If it works, people have to buy it to keep up with it. So that's why we want to become this sort of platform that serves hundreds of thousands of app developers, because they'll buy the data, and then we can feed some of the data back to the payment providers, and the payment providers start to look on us not as a cost, but as a revenue generator. So if they're paying 1% of their revenues to allow us to process payments from Google, but they get back 2% as data, they can use us as a profit source. So we want to deliver enormous value. So the pricing, this thing about pricing power and pricing competition doesn't enter into it. And back to the first question, first or second question, who's our competition? If you've got an internal competitor, so you've got the AT&T's internal billing team competing with you, they always say they cost nothing. So we have to have a price. The beauty of Bango as well is we've always had slightly higher prices than everybody else because of this. We make the payments more likely. We increase growth with Bango Boost and various things like that. So we always want to be the most expensive, but also the highest volume. So that's our trajectory.
Do you have any liability or callback on the direct carrier billings where they fail to pay?
No.
So
no, we don't.
With large amounts going on televisions and so on, you don't have any cost to come back?
Not at all, no. So winding back 10 or 15 years ago, the way it worked was that Bango would collect money from the operators and pass it through us and pay it to the developers. And if for some reason the operator decided not to pay, like, I don't like that sort of content, we'd obviously pass the liability, but ultimately we had this problem that we were sort of somewhere in there. And now largely we're out of the payment flow. So we just charge a fee for processing the payments, and the money goes from a payment provider like a mobile operator or a wallet provider straight to Google or straight to Amazon.
I have a question on percentage of revenue that actually ends up with the merchant. How much of that actually, because there's a number of players in the chain.
Yes, there is. Yeah. So if you imagine if someone buys something for $100, let's make the percentages a bit easier. If someone buys something for $100, the normal model is that through an app store, $70 goes to the app developer, and then the app store provider keeps 30. So in our case, mostly that'll be Google keeps 30. And then Google pays the payment provider out of their 30. So it used to be that they used to pay about 15%, $15 in every 100 to the person who collected the money. So the mobile operator got 15. And then the mobile operator would pay us $1 or $2 out of that 15. And then they'd keep 13. And with that 13, they had to get the money from all of their consumers, deal with bad debts, deal with Tesco top-up cards or whatever they do. So they have to pay for that. That's starting to change because, first of all, the app developers are getting kickbacks from Google. So they get a bit grumpy when they only get 70%. And they say to Google, why are we giving you a large amount of money? So the Fortnite is a very good example. So what Google will do is they'll give them like a kickback, or if they do a subscription service. So you can get as much as 85% now from Google, which leaves 15% still for the payment provider. And also the payment providers are being squeezed now. So they're being squeezed down because Google's saying, look, we're going to have a Google payment system, or we're going to have this, that, and the other, or new wallets are coming in, Alipay, PayPay, Paytm, all these new payment methods are coming through. So the payment providers are being crushed down, which is another reason why we think it's extremely attractive to be able to monetize the data. Because if you're being crushed down by Google or Amazon, well, how are you going to make money as a payment provider? If you look at the thin margins of it can make money at scale. Adyen or WorldPay or Wirecard, they're all trying to move into the data monetization space because they're getting squeezed down on the payment processing. Same with Visa and MasterCard. So we think data is where it's at, but obviously to get the data, you've got to get the transactions. That's why it's very important to build that end user spend circle going, speeding up.
Have any of your clients or customers left you? And what problems have you encountered with your customers?
Yeah, I think
how do they all stay?
Yeah, over 20 years, yes, people have disappeared. So I think Thumbplay or something in Canada, which used to be a big business 10 years ago. So a lot of people have sort of disappeared. But over since we've started focusing on the Goliaths, none of the Goliaths have disappeared. So, and we haven't lost any of our big customers. So we've kept all of our customers. And so far, no, we haven't had any customer loss of any particular note. I think the only one that sort of was a loss, but in fact we terminated our relationship with them, was BlackBerry. So we were powering the BlackBerry App World App Store, and about 4 or 5 years ago we were able to disconnect from them because it was becoming, their revenues are going down and down and down. Do you remember BlackBerry? By the way? Yeah. So, and we also used to power Nokia OV Store as well about 10 years ago. So both of those disappeared a long time ago, but not recently.
Because they've gone out of business, not because of any
BlackBerry
problem.
shifted their business to a different model. They became a software company, not a phone company.
Going from 1 billion to 2 billion seems a heck of a move. So you're saying that the broker is saying you'll get to 2 billion. My concern is, you've done fantastically well to double the end user spend for the last 5 years, but I just think it must be getting harder. Or is it getting harder to move from 1 billion to 2 billion?
It's incredibly hard all the time. So we work hard. We're always trying to get it, and so we don't shy away from a tough challenge. And so the reason it's incredibly hard is that we have to do those 4 steps. We have to provide data that makes it work better. We have to bring on new merchants. And remember, the new merchants that come on board don't really do much in the first year, and then they start to do something in the second year. But because they're growing faster, they help in the third and fourth year. So that work was done last year, the year before, YouTube TV, Spotify, those new merchants coming on board. So it's building that momentum. And the other way of looking at it as well is there's a huge amount of opportunity out there. So we've got 1 billion out of that 120 billion for a start. There's a lot of blue ocean to go for. And we've got those direct routes that someone mentioned earlier as where actually the competition, where there are chunks of $1 billion of spend that people are doing now themselves that could come to the Bango platform, and then we could monetize for them and make them money, and we could get a share of the money we make for them, and we could probably charge them for the processing fees. So there's all sorts of opportunities. But this isn't a business for those who don't want to go in and fight hard and emerge victorious. And I think the question right at the back of the room about the team you work with, we have a great team who's very, very keen, and the team gets stronger all the time. So that means we can work hard, and there's some lovely pieces of business on the horizon.
Thank you very much indeed, Ray. Appreciate the input. Thank you.